was the last time you went on a date?
What do you classify as a date? Let's go there because I don't know, months? Months? Yeah, it's been months. I've had these like random like, hey, are you around? You wanna meet me at blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, and then I happen to be free on that one night and I'm like, okay. But I don't consider that a date. I think a date is like there was some planning and there's some thought put behind it. So yeah, one of those, couldn't even tell you the last one I've been on, my friend, because I have no idea.
Welcome back to The World Over. That was a look at the new film, The Dating Project. It opens April 17th, featuring my next guest. She's a professor of philosophy at Boston College who found something seriously lacking in her students' lives, their dating lives. For the first time in history, 50% of Americans are single. Now, given the hookup culture, technology, social media, have young people lost the skills necessary to date, let alone fall in love and marry? My next guest issued a challenge to students, and she's here to tell us what she discovered. Please welcome Dr. Kerry Cronin to the program.
Thanks
Kerry,
for
great to see you.
having me.
Okay, let's start with what we saw there. What did you discover, and why did a philosophy professor decide, I need to help these kids in their dating lives? What were you seeing that provoked this?
Well, right, about, probably now 12 or 15 years ago, I had a conversation that I always connect this to years ago with a group of seniors at Boston College, which is a Jesuit Catholic university, a great university. And I was talking to these 8 seniors who were just wonderful, go-getter types, really beautiful inside and out. And I was talking to them about life after graduation, and of the 8 of them, only 1 had dated while at BC. And I thought,
wow,
wait, what's going on? And so the more I asked them about it, the more I heard about hookup culture and the dominance of hookup culture. And it really occurred to me that really dating scripts in our culture are sort of lost.
Yeah.
So I started assigning a dating assignment to my senior capstone class at the time. I also teach freshman philosophy, a philosophy and theology course in the great books tradition. And so we naturally get to conversations about this. How should you live? What's the best way to live? What is the connection between faith and reason? And so these conversations naturally arise.
And the challenge was what? They had to go on a date, but there were prescriptions that you demanded.
Right. So what actually happened was the first semester that I assigned it to a group of students, a group of seniors in a capstone seminar, I said, just go on a date and then come back and we'll talk about it. Well, week after week after week, they came back and they just talked about it endlessly, but they didn't go on dates. And I thought, well, I don't think they know what they're doing. So the next semester, I actually wrote up an assignment. And I said to them, look, hookup culture has rules. You know what they are. Nobody's written them down, but you know what they are. You play by those rules. But dating has some rules that are really helpful. So I wrote up the instructions, and they really responded to that. Students, it was like the coaching they needed, right? So the rules are things like, you have to ask somebody out in person, which is a huge obstacle for them. And when you ask, you should have a plan that's within 3 days of asking. And if you ask, you should pay. And,
it couldn't be more than $10.
It shouldn't be more than $10 because you don't want to signal that it's overly serious or that it's really high
rules out
stakes.
dinner. I mean.
No, right, exactly. And I always say, and it should be 60 to 90 minutes long. So I say, dinner is not a good idea for a first date because that is a little over serious. The stakes are too high there. So I'm trying to teach them or coach them into sort of low stakes casual dating to sort of bring that back as a script.
So why is dating so vexing for this generation? What is it? Why do millennials have such a problem with dating?
That's a great question. I think it's vexing on the one hand for all of us because it involves awkwardness and rejection, the possibility of being rejected, and for millennials, I'm usually talking to students at top tier universities and colleges, and these these young people work so hard, right?
Yeah.
In all areas of their lives, they've been coached and they're on teams and they've been competing. They're very high achieving. But as I say to them, this is the one area of your life where effort doesn't necessarily correlate with success. You know, you can be your best self, you can be your most gorgeous self and have your hair just done and be interesting, and yet somebody might still say, well, not so much with you know?
Yeah.
And so this is an area where they struggle because in other parts of their lives, success means they're going to succeed.
Right. Effort breeds success.
Exactly.
Here,
Exactly. Right. Here, there's a chemistry thing. There's.
But isn't it a cultural thing? I mean, I think of my children all the time in this. Isn't it a cultural moment that they're in as well? That
Sure.
is so hostile to the notion of romance.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, I almost think, I almost feel badly for my children because we reared them in a place where people talk. I mean, we recently moved back to New Orleans, and we did that because you're forced to have human interaction. People have big meals, we recreate together, there's music, there's dancing. Other parts of the country and the world, just not done anymore.
That's right. That's right. You're right. And I think you're pointing to something really important. On the one hand, they're living in a really intense, fast-paced culture. Culture here in the U.S. is incredibly intense. So really, intensity is their mode, right? And dating takes time. It takes cultivating skills of really letting yourself be seen by someone, the beauty of your life, or the joy and the despair of your life. And also seeing that in someone else. That's something that's not it. You have to. Intimacy is sort of mundane and banal, right?
And it takes time.
As I say to students, intimacy is it's a road trip. It's not a quick drive. You know what I mean? But so I think you're right. The intensity is there for most of these young adults, but also the lack of romance is a real problem. I mean,
I want to play something for you
Sure,
from the
please.
film.
Oh, yes.
And this is a girl from Monterey.
Yes.
And she's talking about just what you mentioned, intimacy, touch. Watch this.
My family would tell me that I'm like a teddy bear because I would always like go on and hug them since I was like a baby. And so like I came here and I just needed a hug. And so when I was with this guy, like I totally forgot on like what physical contact is. And so like he was like just touching my arm and he was like doing these and I wanted to cry. Like it was just so weird.
What does that tell you?
That is such a heartbreaking scene to me, but it says a lot, and it says all the sorts of things that I hear from young adults and college students today, that really they have deep desires for connection and affection and
love.
to be ratified by someone in this world. You know, even if you feel really loved by your family and by God, you know, it's still such a deep longing in us to find someone special who really sees you and sees the wonder of you.
But it's fascinating to me when you read the studies, when you read so much of your work, they rush to the end. They rush to the physical contact and sex.
That's right.
But they lack intimacy.
That's exactly right.
So what is that? And what is the fallout from that juxtaposition of really, events?
Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of young people are sort of front-loading their physical intimacy and trying to let that do all the work, right? Of the kind of intimacy that demands that you show up, right, emotionally, and that you are there for somebody else without letting your body do all the talking and making all the promises. And and I say to young people a lot, look, what happens, some of the fallout is really dark and really dangerous. And some of the fallout is loneliness and anxiety and real dread about the possibilities of finding romance and love. But in terms of sort of front-loading their physical intimacy, I often say to students, look, your bodies are saying things and making promises that you don't always mean. And then you wonder why it gets out of control and why there's drama and
Yeah, and why there's hurt and pain and that
Exactly.
hollowness after.
That's
Yeah,
right.
and you
That's
see
right.
that in the work. What role does technology play in all of this? You would imagine, because they have what we didn't have. They have Tinder, they have Grindr, they have Bumble, they have Frumble, they have Fumble. But with all of these dating apps
Yes.
and dating services,
Right.
what's the problem?
Right. You know, here's the thing about all these devices and all this social media. It promises connection, right? And in many ways it does provide that, but it's a kind of a shallow connection. And I don't want to be some old lady who's saying, get off your phones all the time, you know. But I do point out to students, and a lot of us are pointing out now, the kind of connections that we get from that are not sort of life-giving, sustaining kind of connections. Often we're exporting our emotional lives to home and not to the people we live with or the people, you know, who we're dealing with day to day and the people we should be dating. So you got to learn to build your varsity team, your emotional varsity team where you are, right?
Yeah.
And social media allows us to sort of shuttle that out and away.
There's a little clip I want to share, and it came up in a discussion in the film, The Dating Project. Well, I'll play it and then we can talk about it.
Okay,
Watch
great.
this.
Have you guys ever thought, like, would you guys mind if, like, your guy would watch, like, porn movies? Like, would you mind, or
Whatever he wants to do on his free time.
but you wouldn't think that he's kind of cheating on you?
Why would he?
I don't know.
I don't see he's not with another woman.
Yeah, but it's like portraying something that is not real.
Why do you get uncomfortable with porn? Take it this way: you like to watch cooking shows. He likes to watch porn.
That's like two different things.
What impact does this have? I mean, I know these people are kind of dismissing it. Well, it's just like, you know, it's like watching a cooking show or watching Golf Channel.
Right.
It seems to have far deeper impact on relationships and individual lives.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we all know we're living here in the United States in a highly sexualized culture. And pornography is sort of ubiquitous.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to a group of former students a few weeks ago, and I was asking them about pornography. We were having a conversation about it. They really think that it's sort of morally neutral, and I thought, wow, I found that kind of shocking. But then when you push in with some good questions on that, they acknowledge that it shapes their imaginations about romance and love and sex.
Well, expectations.
And expectations. I had a student years ago who said to me, look, I love my girlfriend, but when I'm physically intimate with her, all I can imagine is the porn that I've seen. And it's really tragic. And it's hard for them to kind of get out from under that.
And yet, in the midst of that, your research reveals men, more than young women, crave relationships. They
Absolutely.
crave this deep connection.
Yeah.
Why is that? What's happened to girls? That's my question.
Well, yeah, that's a great question. So what happened to me was that when I first stumbled into this conversation with young adults, I didn't know that I brought with me a bias, that I just assumed that, guys want a
quick hit,
culture, and that
yeah.
women really wanted to date.
Right.
But over the years, I've really changed my mind about that. I really hear from many young men, I would really like to date, but when you ask a girl out, she looks at you like, what are you talking about? Are you, you want to get married tomorrow? I'm not into that. That's too intense. That's too serious. And I often say to young men who will say to me, well, I'll say, you're going to ask some girl out, and here's what she's going to do. She's going to say yes. She's going to look like she's a deer in headlights a little bit. She's going to say yes. And then 24 hours later, she's going to text you and say, this is just friends, right? And I'll tell you what happened. She went back and talked to 108 of her closest friends, and they all weighed in about this. And they're all skittish and nervous about it. And hearing from their families, you're in college, you've got to get your career set.
Don't get attached to anybody.
Don't get attached. But I think families don't know that if you're not getting attached, that it's not just nothing, that people aren't just opting out. This hookup scene is very dominant. It's very alluring. It draws people in.
Well, I've often said it's when you go to campuses, and you see it, you live at campus.
Sure.
When I visit campuses, the girls now, I don't want letters about this. I'm just speaking truth here. Young ladies, there was a time when young women could domesticate and control the situation and taught a boy how to become a man. Today, the culture has taught women how to become boys.
Oh, interesting.
That is a bad recipe.
Right.
Now the guardrails are off. And I think this is, then the hookup, you need two to tango in the hookup thing.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
So that's why when I saw this research that young men still crave these relationships, but the women are saying, I don't want that.
Right.
And you see it, I guess I'm the cultural guy. I'm the cultural observer. I recently took a son to a dance. I shouldn't say this, but I will. And I happened to peer through the door watching the kids dance.
Right.
They all dance in a big blob.
Right.
Nobody dances together.
right.
They really just jump like
That's
this
right.
next to each other. I said, how is this a dance? When I was dance, hey, you want to come? Want to go dance? We'll go dance.
That's right.
It was one-on-one.
Well, and look at that. You had to ask.
Right.
And that takes some social courage, right? And you learned that sometimes you get a no. And that's
Right.
okay. And you're okay the next day about that.
Yeah.
The ask is really important. But to your earlier point, you're right. I think in our culture, it's hard to become a man and it's hard to become a woman.
Yeah, it is.
We don't have a lot of help. And so I think, and sometimes I go to schools and I say, if you ask somebody on a date, you pay. And young women will say to me, oh, well, I don't believe in that. I really believe in the traditional format. And I say, well, isn't that easy for you? But here's the thing. You need to pay and you need to ask because everybody needs to be courageous in this culture because nobody's getting any help. And we can't leave it just up to the guys. Everybody needs to step up and be courageous.
What was the result of the young people going through this traditional model of dating that you created for
yes.
them? What was the reaction? How did it change them?
Well, the first thing I've noticed a lot of things over the years. I give this assignment every year, and I have, and part of the assignment is that they have to write a 2 to 3 page reflection afterwards and talk to each other in class about what it was like. And those are the best conversations, and I've got a locked drawer full of amazing reflections on how nervous they were. I have this great young woman wrote in her paper, my palms were sweating as I approached my target. And I thought, uh-oh, wait a minute.
The Death Star.
I know, exactly. They write these amazing reflections about their feelings, but they also write that, wow, people thought I was amazing. People were so impressed. My friends were so impressed that I did this. And when I brought this assignment home, the rules, all my roommates wanted to talk about it, and they wanted to try it. And I thought, really? It was just a list of common sense insights. But that was one of the things that I realized after the first semester of doing this, that the greatest thing about the dating assignment for me wasn't necessarily that 15 or 25 students were going on dates, though that's wonderful, and I've been to a wedding that came out of it.
Great.
But the best thing is that it got students talking to each other about it and about what they really long for and what they fear.
Given all of this, what would be your advice to parents of high schoolers and college kids?
Yes.
What should they be doing to help their young person go out and find the person they were intended to be with and build a life with them?
That's a great question. First, they should go see the movie. And I'll tell you, this movie, when they called me to say, would you be part of this, I thought, oh, these people are crazy. I'm not going to do this. But they did such a beautiful job. It's so story-driven, and I think it's a great movie that you could watch with your kids and talk about, and young people could watch with each other and really talk about productively. But one thing that I've often recommended to parents is talk about the relationships that didn't work out. Most of us talk about spouses or partners, the relationship that did work out.
Right.
But most of us don't talk about our dating foibles and adventures and the one that got away or the one I wished I had asked out when I was 16 but I didn't. I I think those conversations help young people.
Yeah.
I think they want to hear about our successes and our failures, and they want to hear that you get through it and you'll be fine.
Now,
And-
Kerry, this is the final question.
Okay.
I've saved probably the most difficult for last.
Oh my.
You are the dating doctor, and yet you're single.
I am.
Now,
Yes.
and what
Yeah.
has this reshaped the way you approach dating
Yeah.
or engage possible dates?
Absolutely. You know, I always say to students, look, I'm talking to you about dating, and I'm not married, so maybe I'm not very good at this, but I'm old and I still have to think about it, right? I have to think about this. Most of your parents and your aunts and uncles, mostly, they did this years ago.
Out of the game for 25 years.
Exactly. Yeah. So they don't know. I'm in this with you. I know that I'm asking you to do something really difficult. I know that I'm asking you to risk feeling awkward and risk rejection, because I have to do that too. So, but we all need to be brave. We all need to try. You try, and if it doesn't work, you dust yourself off. You find a good friend to eat some ice cream with, and you get back out there.
And you say it's really about social courage.
It is.
More than anything else.
It is.
Very good.
It is.
Excellent. The film is fantastic.
Thank
you
you
for
so
coming in.
much.
And remember, the Dating Project featuring Boston College professor Dr. Kerry Cronin opens Tuesday, April 17th for one night only in select theaters. Go to thedatingprojectmovie.com. Tickets are available now for screenings in your area.